Good morning, everyone. Glad to have you here. I think that we're doing this right. We will see. Very boomer. I hate that phrase, but what are you going to do? Good morning, everyone. I am Kevin Gregg. Welcome to the show. I hope that as you are getting this, that you are not getting nearly 30 seconds of me just looking into a thing. I'm trying to navigate this stuff as I do it live. There we go. Perfect. Glad to have you here. Let me mute myself on that side. Hi. Several thoughts on my mind this morning. If you do join us live, please feel free to comment uh, in the live stream thing, and I will get back to you and answer you. Hopefully, if you're with us. What's on my mind this morning? Showing up consistently. My friend Dana Middleton just put out a thing with her Aligned Artists Facebook group about being a farmer, which I thought was, boy, it's spot on. The concept that she has in this post that she's written is farmers have to show up just about they have to show up every single day. Actually, my uncle back in Ireland, my family comes from a dairy farm on my mom's side, the Kelly side in County Mayo, near a little village named Bacon, which is also near Clonbullabin on the west coast of Ireland. He runs a dairy farm. Actually, my mom grew up on a dairy farm with her brothers and sisters. Interesting thing with cows, you can't, you have to milk them every day. You have to tend them. You have to watch them. You have to make sure that they get out. You have to make sure that they get back in. There's really not a day off at all. There's actually a very interesting documentary that came out several years ago. I'm going to say it was almost 15 years ago. It was called like The Farmer's Wife. They showed it on PBS. I should take a look and see if I can find that again. That was a really interesting look at somebody that had it was a family farm and trying to make a living with it. I don't know what their crop was. Maybe they were dealing with livestock on there as well. Point is, with when you're doing farm work, you have to show up every day. Like, you've got to get up. We have it to a small extent with pets, right? Like, you've got to get up, make sure the dog goes out, does his business, that he's coming back in and getting fed. You just can't take a day off and go, it's fine. Dana's point in this is that you're showing up every day, regardless, whether you feel it or you don't feel it. Is that a comment about doing the stream? Yeah, I think to some extent it is. Let me tell you the positive side of this. This has been an interesting navigation of my career, especially in the social media space and in the streaming space. There are times when you put material out and you do stuff and you throw your heart into it, and then you put it out into the world, and it kind of takes a little, it grabs a little bit of traction and it grabs a little bit of attention. But there's some things that I've dove in, man, and I've put in all of this hard work and everything, and then it's just crickets, like nothing. And there are times where you just want to throw in the towel on stuff, where you just go, forget it. What's the point? But I had two memories that popped up in my mind today. And again, it's why I referenced Dana's article that she wrote for her Facebook group. I remember years ago, I went to Cal State LA in their theater department. I got a theater degree, and boy, there's a whole bunch of stories revolving around that. You can go over to Your Creative Journey podcasts and listen to some of my earlier episodes where I talk about that, getting into that school. But I remember specifically one night, in most, like in college programs, and particularly in high school drama, you do all of this work on a show, and it only goes up for one weekend, maybe 2 weekends, and it's like weeks and weeks and weeks of work. We were doing a show at school called The Sign in Sidney Brewstein's Window. This is Lorena Hansberry. I think it is. My theater teacher, Elizabeth Bell Haynes, is going to kill me if I don't remember that. Lorena Hansberry, I think. Pretty sure. Anyway, we're doing the show. That the sign in Sidney Brustein's window is it's a long play. It's a huge play. It's almost a 3 hour play, and we were doing it for a student production thing that was called uh, what was it? We did it in Theater 101. We would call them the 7-Eleven theater programs. We called them the 7-Eleven theater programs because it was like this black box theater that had all of like these egg crate lights that were over it, right? They had this lighting system. So it was like the entire roof had all of these crates that had these like lights. Uh, and somebody had measured it once, and from the floor to the bottom part of those light crates, it was 7 foot 11 inches. So somebody said, let's just call these 7-Eleven productions. We were doing these 7-Eleven productions. And I remember one night we're getting ready to do the sign of Sidney Brustein's window. And uh, it's a very good play, but it's very deep and it's very challenging. And I had a very challenging role in it. Um, yeah, I had a very challenging role in it. Uh, and I remember one night before we were going to go out, uh, we probably had like, I think that we had like 7 to 8 people that were in the cast, maybe a little bit more. Could be wrong about that. But I remember we're getting ready to do this. I remember I like peeked around the side from where you could look before he came out, because it was like it was one of these black box theaters where there wasn't what there was a backstage. There was like a backstage part, but you also had entrances that came in from the side on either sides of the audience. And I remember one of my entrances was going to be from the side. I remember I peeked around. I think there was like 3 people in the audience. So the amount of people that were in the cast outnumbered the people that were in the audience. And I remember feeling a little bit disheartened because it was like, oh, we've done all of this work. It's been such a challenging process going through all this and looking out and just going, what is this for? Right. Well, in hindsight, now I can take a look back and just go, okay, well, I tell you what it's for. It's the fact that you continue to show up. You have an opportunity to practice your craft, and even though you're doing it for a few people, you're getting the opportunity to flex the muscles and to experiment and to try to get better with your craft. Um, Now I've been in scenarios before where if the cast outnumbers the audience, you give the audience a refund and see if they'll come back on another night. I totally get that, right, to some extent, but didn't happen on this evening. So I remember that. But then I also remember when I was first um, uh, when I was first showing up for recovery program stuff several years ago. Um, Boy, I didn't want to do it. Right. I knew that there was like a change that needed to happen in my life with certain issues that I was dealing with. Um, and I knew that the best way to do that would be to be getting into a continual, regular program. Um, but I remember the place that I was going to on Wednesday evenings, which I'm still a part of, but the place I was going to on Wednesday evenings, it was partway between where I used to work and where I lived. And it's a huge long commute down here in Southern California. And I remember, it's right after I would finish a long day of work. And then right after that, I'd have to stop and be in this place. And then, you know, you're at this place for like 2 hours. I'm part of a recovery group, Christian based recovery group, where it's like we've got worship, then we break into small groups, and it's just like, you know, it's a long evening, right? And when you're first starting out and you're just like crawling out of your skin, and listen, man, it's not like every night that you show up for a thing that it feels like, oh, this is amazing, this is life changing. No, there's a lot of nights where you show up at this thing and you just go, I don't want to be here. Like, I do not want to be here. This is the last place I want to be. I don't feel like I'm getting anything out of this. Um, but boy, several years later now, I am so glad that I've done it, because the continual showing up has just been transformative for me in my heart, my mind, just moving forward. And again, I guess I keep coming back to this. Alan Arnold, who wrote this book called The Story of With. Fantastic book. If you get a chance to read it, The Story of With. Um, he talks about this concept in that book of, we're given these gifts and these skills with God, and especially when it comes to, if you have a creative thing that's gnawing at you to show up. And he poses this challenging question that's in the book, which is like, are you willing to do this if the only people that benefit from this uh, are yourself and God, strengthening and deepening the relationship with God? Um, and that's super powerful, right? I think that there's something to be said about the getting up and showing up, and what is it that's deepening your relationship with God on a daily basis. Then thinking about the larger part of it, which is like, how does this help other people along the way? What is it that what is it that I can share or to encourage other people? That's actually the thing that I discovered in the recovery process, right? First, you're showing up and you're trying to take care of yourself, and you're just trying to do the work. And sometimes you got to plow through that work, and it sucks while you're doing it. And you're working with sponsors, and you're working with accountability partners, and you're going through the process. And then something changes when you're going through and sludging through all that work and deepening your relationship with God. And then you have this you have a spiritual experience that happens, where it stops becoming about yourself, and you genuinely just want to turn around and go, how can I help? How can I help somebody else? um, Boy, that's an awesome thing. That's what I need to be looking for in work, right? That's what I hope that you're looking for in your work. I grew up in I grew up during a time, and I think that this still exists. I'm almost, I know for certain that exists because I hear it every day. But this concept that people were showing up at jobs that they absolutely loathed and hated, complaining about it every single step of the way, and being these weekend warriors, like, well, I go through all of this hell and all this sludge and all this stuff just so I can get to my weekends, right? um Now, that's not to say that we all get to do work that we're super happy with, and we're skipping on the clouds and everything is just roses and puppy dogs and rainbows and lollipops. There's something that can happen inside of you that can also be a mind shift to go, even if you're in a situation where you're in a job that you don't necessarily want to be in forever, but looking at the situation and saying, all right, I'm here. What can I do? What can I learn? How can I use my skills in this environment? Um, how can I grow from this? What does this make possible for myself? Um, I've had it. I've had it where I've been in the middle of just crappy jobs that aren't necessarily exactly what I want to do, but the moment of going, all right, what's the gratitude? What's the thing that I can learn? What's the thing that I can stretch in this? Um, but this concept of people that are just like in this drudgery, something that they just are miserable at. No way. I will say that that's something that my dad taught me when I was younger, because he experienced it when he was younger too, right? He would jump from job to job to job while he was trying to find something that would work for him moving onward. I remember I worked, and this really clicked for me, man. This is way back down in Southern California, and I think that they had it nationally, but they used to have warehouse entertainment. How do they spell it? It was like Where, Where, warehouse. This was one of the first places that you could go where you get like video rentals, like rent video stuff, where you go there to get your music. I was working there when like CDs were first becoming like a big thing. But I worked at this place, and it was right at the Beverly Connection. So right in the heart of Los Angeles, So right at Beverly Boulevard and La Cienega, there's the huge Beverly Center, which used to be like the big gray whale. And then there's another place called the Beverly Connection, which is right along the side. So the warehouse used to be in this place. So I got this job as a teenager. Talk about two jobs I had in that area that I hated with a passion. I'll tell these stories and I'll wrap up for today. But oh my gosh. One of them was I was working at the warehouse and I was doing that while I was also going to school at Cal State LA. So, you're hustling, you're doing this stuff. And I remember I had this one manager. She was a woman that was probably I'm going to say she was probably in her late 20s or early 30s at the time. She was kind of well put together, but she had a little bit of this, it's like Madonna in the 80s. What was that? Was it the Suddenly Susan, Seeking Susan, whatever that movie was with Madonna and Patricia Arquette, where they're sort of like made up with the wavy hair and it's up and they've got the pearls and the lace gloves and stuff. This was what this manager looked like. Like she was put together like this. Um, but for some reason, man, I must have reminded her of somebody that she did not like, whatever it was. But every time I worked with her, man, it was always like she'd let everybody go. She'd let people wrap up, close up their cash registers, do whatever. But for me, man, she'd always extend my stuff, like just to the point of like she wouldn't let me off my station until like 30 seconds before my clock out time or whatever it was. So I'm working this one night where I'm working with her and I just don't want to be there. And it's a late night and I've got to get up and they're scheduling me the next day to do some work. And this other goofball that I worked with, who was kind of like a surfer dude, comes in and you'd get like low rental fees as an employee working there. But I remember he he showed up, he was returning some videos and he needed to pay for it. And he was just being like a goofball. And I said, all right, man, that'll be $1.50 or whatever. And he handed me the dollar bill. But then before he handed me the dollar bill, he took the dollar bill and then he just like ripped it in half. And then he just threw it down the counter and went, there you go, bro. And I just looked at him and I just thought, what are you doing? Because I knew that I was working with this heinous manager who was probably going to give me hell about the fact that I'd accepted torn up money or whatever that stuff was. And I remember just getting angry at him. And somehow or another, I skated out that evening without any more stuff. But I remember I got home and I just did not want to go back to that job. And I remember my dad just said, well, quit, figure out something else. You can go get another job. And sure enough, I did. I wrote out like this long little note that was like the reasons why I was leaving, because I couldn't get a hold of anybody. You couldn't leave like messages for anybody back then. I was supposed to show up the next day, and I just put a little, post it. I put like a little piece of paper on the front door of the warehouse for the opening manager, and just said, "Listen, I'm not coming in. I'm just, I'm done with it. I'm moving on." Uh, I've got another story in the Beverly Connection that was terrible, where I just worked with this guy that ran this flower stand. Uh, you know, oh my gosh, he was the one of the worst bosses that I ever had. He was so like verbally abusive and threatening, and I won't say it for a fact, but allegedly it appeared as if he was always on cocaine. He was just one of these guys that was like amped up all the time. And oh my gosh, he was just such an obnoxious like business owner and just wanted everything. This is a guy that was paying for for stuff, and he wanted to make sure that everybody was doing everything his way. And it was just like he was like walking on eggshells. You never knew what was going to trigger him, what was going to set him off. And boy, I remember I quit. I gave my resignation, and then it took weeks for me to get my final paycheck. And my final paycheck was something like, it was like 90 or $100, but it was something significant for a college kid at the time. And I remember I went to the actual flower stand to ask him for my final check, and he threatened me. Like he said, "You get out of here, I'm going to punch you in the face," whatever. I mean, like literally, he said that he was going to punch me. And I started walking away, and there was one of my neighbors. She's fantastic. I still communicate with her on Facebook. Her name's Liz Callahan, Australian woman. She was our next door neighbor. She was awesome. She happened to see me. And she said, what's going on, Kevin? I said, I'm trying to get this money from this guy, and he won't give it to me. And Liz said, you're coming with me. And Liz came with me, and she basically said, you owe this young man money, and you're going to give it to him. And she berated this guy. And he said, oh, and he backtracked in front of her and said, okay. I'll get it to her. And I think he might have, I don't know if he either reached in and like gave me like $90 or something out of the register, but then this creep ended up following. I split, I thanked Liz dearly. And then Liz went into the Ralph's that was right there, the grocery store that was right there. And then this creep followed her into the store. She had like a little kid. She had a couple little kids with her at the time, and just started berating her as she went through the entire store. And oh, what a piece of work. What a piece of work. What did I learn from those experiences? Um, how not to be a boss, how not to treat employees, to train people with dignity and respect. Anyway, I guess those are a few examples I have to share about, like, yeah, sometimes there's things that you don't want to do, but you show up, you do them anyway, because there is a reward and a benefit on the other side. You may not see it immediately, but it's there. So anyway, I'm going to wrap up for now. Thanks for watching. For more content, please go to kevingregg.com. If you've enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, and share this so that I can increase the viewership, so more people can hear these videos. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I will see you soon. God bless you guys. Bye-bye.